When we think about a student when they graduate, what's the message that we've sent to them? Have we sent them the message like, there's a spot for you here, we really want you here? If you're going away to college, we really want you to come back. And it's not just words, it's actually actions. It's been these partnerships all along, these different opportunities. If we are in a community where we continue to see a decline in businesses, how do we partner with the school to help with startups potentially in those gaps, or having students help solve some of those problems? What's going to draw them back? And it's not just growing up there. It is literally looking at all these initiatives that you have, or these different things that you're doing, and just doing it with a planned intentionality by collaborating and building up that partnership.
Hello and welcome to the Future is Clear, Teach Like It's 2045 webcast series. My name is Scott Carr from CESA 2. Today's topic area is transforming work-based learning, what you really should be doing. Joining us today is Kristy Volesky, CEO and founder of Volesky Consulting. Welcome, Kristy. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about having a conversation with you. Super excited. Back in, what was it, April when we met?
Yeah.
I took a stab at it. I knew a ton about you, read your book, had all this information on you, and I'm like, God, I wonder if she's gonna even respond. But we've been able to become pretty good friends over the summer, tackling a few things together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really appreciate it. Really looking forward into the future and working more with you. But let's talk a little bit. I love the lead-in statement on your website: align, transform, and I got it here, thrive. Where'd you come up with that? That's pretty impressive.
Honestly, it's just been over time, collecting just a lot of observations, practices, future ideas. Where are we headed? What have we done in the past? What needs to kind of go away? And it really does come about, it's about systems. We can pretend like, oh, this is the new initiative, we all need to get on board, and we focus on that. But unless it becomes part of your system, aligning it with your system, it's going to eventually fall off and go away, or just not have the teeth. And you'll always feel like you're catching up or spinning around. But so really, truly thriving and reaching that end goal comes with that system alignment, really transforming what you have to reach that goal.
Yeah, when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, after getting to know you, this fits really well. And one of the words I like the best is the transform, right? The transformation. We've had a conversation around that. How's the year been going? Being a consultant now, I know, we're going to talk here. I'll let you tell everybody your journey, but the year just starting out very similar to starting out educationally in your world. Busy, real busy, that kind of stuff.
Yes, but some of it's self-inflicted, Scott, as you
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
I always have a tendency to say, oh, I have a little bit of time. Let me do this thing, which then consumes me. And then I feel like I'm just trying to juggle a lot of things. So, yes,
Yeah.
busy, a lot of it self-inflicted. Again, trying to come up with streamlined processes and ideas that really can take hold, given everybody's limited time and funding, but desire to improve.
Yeah. Well, you're at that genius level, as they say. Those that are the best at it are bouncing all over, doing a ton of different things. And I love what you post on LinkedIn. Love being a part of one of your writings. I love the challenge behind it that we want to disrupt.
Yes.
So that's some really fun stuff. I really appreciate it. So let's dive in a little bit here. Tell us, what's your journey? How did you get where you're at? Give us some of the history. Tell us about yourself.
Well, started out as a business teacher. It's taught at rural, international, suburban, and then went to the state level to oversee work-based learning and business education, eventually being pivoted to focus solely on work-based learning in the state of Iowa. Throughout that part of the journey, I was able to get connected regionally, nationally, started dipping my toes in the water of helping others in other parts and other states to really utilize systems level work that I was figuring out in my state. I was big on just steal it. I've already done the work.
Right.
But it was through all those connections. Then I was pushed a little bit more and was doing more nationally, then decided to take the leap, leave bureaucracy and politics, and do what I love to do on my own, which is really help schools, colleges, communities, and businesses and organizations just really rethink how they're doing things to just do it better. And that means we have to be aligning education with business and industry.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. As I've mentioned before, and you've heard me talk a lot about this too, is, in the work that I've been doing at CESA too, is always the entry point is talking about change,
Mhm.
transforming and transitioning and systems change. Why do you see the need, for change in our educational system?
I think all the signs have been there for decades, and we've done what we can, a little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe there's a motivated educator, maybe there's a motivated administrator. But we have to be thinking more of this as a system level shift because students
Mm.
are disconnected. We know that hands-on experience trumps sitting and listening and regurgitating on a test. We need to be having more of those skill-based experience leadership opportunities for our students. So we really need to be pushing the system at a little bit faster pace, actually a lot faster pace,
Yeah,
Scott, of just
for sure.
how we're doing things. And the one thing I love to do is just to show people how you don't have to spend like tons of money. It really is just about restructuring a lot of times the instructional practices and looking through some of the policies that you have in place or different practices that are actually preventing change that costs nothing. Costs nothing to change, but
Right.
it can dramatically impact not only students, but your community as well.
Yeah, it's not as hard as it needs to be at times,
Right,
right? I mean,
right.
that's really the frustrating part at times. Um, I've heard you talk about edu vitality and ecosystems, and that's a big
Mhm.
part of the work that you do, really emphasizing that students need to feel like they belong. I really, really like that. Talk more about that concept, especially as it relates to like the ecosystem concept. We've had a lot of conversations, ecosystem, right? Right, community. I've learned a ton from you and working with you in regards to the importance of the community and educational ecosystem coming together. So talk more about that.
Yeah, so Edu Vitality was something I finally just kind of put all the pieces together and said,
Mhm.
let's just do this. Gosh, just a few months ago. But while I was working at the state, I had the opportunity to really connect with other agencies, and it was our economic development agency. Their staff is just amazing. Like they're just so forward thinking about how do we push and support our different communities, rural and urban and suburban. Like everyone needs different things, and how do we attract different industries? But what I found was there's just a lot of overlap with what we want in education. So nothing against them or any sort of agency like that. It's like we've never intentionally looked at it like that, right? We've looked at work-based learning as this crossover for workforce, but have we ever taken it on a bigger scale to think about beyond workforce? Is it possible that as humans we care about more than just our work or our careers? And I say that like that because
Yeah.
we do care about more. And that is about the different pieces that economic vitality, community vitality that they're always talking about. But when I
Mm.
looked at different models, and again, this is coming from economic development, a non-educational lens, as that translator, I just saw time after time, I'm like, why aren't we connecting to education? There's so many different opportunities that communities have, these different initiatives to make their communities great places to live, to work, to play, to stay. And all of those are could be connected to education. And those are programs that we desperately want. We desperately want to create these opportunities for students to not only see the reality of what it is that they're learning, but to feel this sense of belonging, not a fake sense of belonging where we're giving out high fives because we've been told to, but to really generate this sense
Yeah.
of belonging for students that they did something to benefit the community. They were part of something that mattered, not, hey, we decided to do a drive and here it is. How do we make that sustainable? So that's where I finally kind of got fed up and said, you know what, I'm going to do this. If nobody's going to really attack this problem and to see where it all connects, then I'll do it. So it was looking at what are those different community vitality components, and then how can we ensure education is part of the
Mhm.
conversation. So everything that we think about has this relationship with education in our community because they're so interdependent on each other.
Yeah.
If the community declines in the number of businesses, or there's no place for residents to move in and we're just declining in age, what happens to the school? Decreases funding,
Right.
decreases students. Decreased funding and students means layoffs, means
Yeah.
programs are going away. So it's not in the benefit of the school to see the community go downhill. And it's
Right.
also not the benefit of the community to see the school go downhill, because once the school goes downhill, who wants to put their kids? What kind of families want to move to that area? And does that mean then we're asking people to commute? And then how long are they going to be, how long will they commute before
Right.
say, enough, I'll find a different job in a different community where I don't have to spend all my time in my vehicle just to go to work. So
Yeah.
that was kind of this idea of, you know what, all the pieces are here. They just need a translator. I'm happy to be the translator of here's what you're trying to do to improve your community. There's an educational match for that. And there's a need for that. And we can do it in a way that is not only sustainable, but streamlines resources. There's so many things that we want to do in education that we're constantly chasing donations and funding. Well, there's so many different opportunities funding wise that communities can go after, but they don't always have the human capital to fulfill it. So if we bring the two together, education can focus on the educational component, community can focus on the funding piece of it, and everybody wins.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very well said. You do reference how it needs to be intertwined.
Mhm.
Right, the educational system with the community, business partners, organizations. Interested where you came up with that thought. I mean, you just talked a little bit about that, but interested where, because you take it to much more depth than a lot of schools that I work with. And I think that's part of the systems process, right? Which you've gotten yourself out of, right? Purposely. And so that intertwinedness in regards to it, where did it come from? But also, what are some examples? What does that really look like?
So a lot of this again has just been experience, because I'm
Yeah.
always looking for how could we be doing it better? How can we take what we have, make it better rather than always trying to add more on? That's my former practitioner, like we can't take one more thing. How do we use what we have mentality? But so, for example, one of the conversations I had had with a state consultant, Chris Zurich, who used to oversee all of the CTSOs, and we were looking at how can we better align the opportunities when it comes to work-based learning and CTSOs, because they very much want to be a part of that. They already do these service learning projects. Well, then we got connected with Volunteer Iowa, who was going to be giving out grants to schools to do service learning. And it was in those conversations that even Chris had pointed out, what if it was something bigger than we felt like making a bench, now asking the community, where do you want to put it? What if instead it was, what do you need? And maybe that's what we make. Do we need a 10th butterfly garden, or should we be looking at how do we create maybe a thrift store that's open, that reuses some of the clothing that we don't need to provide it at a lower cost because it fulfills a need in our community? Or does it mean we need to look at repainting a building because it doesn't look so pretty, but adding a mural would make it like an Instagram space and a space that people want to be around or to hang around? My favorite example, because she's a good friend of mine, is Boz from Boone. I had approached her on this topic. What do you think if we do something? And she goes, I love it. Now, she lives in a Main Street community, which Main Street is a nonprofit. They have communities all across the nation. And it's really all of their focuses are almost all on this. It's all on community vitality and how are we not refurbishing, or how are we making these great and beautiful places. And there's a lot of different elements. So she connected with her Main Street person who was very much interested in this. And they looked at like an easy project. She had a project-based class. They talked and they met.
Mhm.
Low budget. We don't have a lot of money starting out. We have to show that it works. We have to show what matters. So what could we do? Took the students downtown and they were like, those trash cans are peeling, they're ugly, they're just not great looking. How about we paint those? And then the tree, they used to put little wood chips around it, but they would make a mess. And there was a lot of complaints about that during the summer months. What if there was these grates so you didn't have to have wood chips, but it would protect the trees and make it easier for maintaining downtown? So she passed along the tree grate thing to an ag class. So the students worked on that, understanding the size, the dimensions, how to build it, how to weld it, how to install it. And then her students figured out how to get paint. So they got donation for paint. It wasn't something that they had to peel out of a budget at the school. And then they figured out what the design would be, and then they painted it. It was simple.
Yeah.
The students
Couldn't
were so
count,
proud.
right?
And they had a celebration. The mayor said something. They had the superintendent there. They had different city council people there and businesses there. They had their Main Street person, the teachers, the students, and they were like, this is the beginning of something beautiful, of a collaboration to really reinvent our downtown and make it beautiful.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, and a lot of the times the simple ones, right? It's
Hmm.
not right. It's not about doing more.
Right.
It's about doing different. Because a lot of times when I come in and talk about this type of work with school districts, I'll get a few of people say, "Oh, it's just project-based learning." I'm like, yeah, but it's a little more than that.
Yeah.
Bit more than that. It goes to that intentionality. Kids love projects, but when you tie the deeper meaning to the outcome of preparedness, down the road, then they really get excited. Talk a little bit about, how would I say this? It, it is easy, but I'm sure there are some hurdles that you got to get over. And you just gave a great example. Talk
Mhm.
of something that turned out great. Talk about what schools can kind of maybe have out in front of them, that of some of those hurdles that they may need to get over, the difficulties that they may see in this that might totally shut them down. What do you
Oh,
see in that sometimes?
sorry, there's a fly that keeps buzzing my face. I don't know if that's on the camera or not.
No, that's
Uh, just kind of threw me off. It would landed on my face. Sorry. Some of the hurdles sometimes is this feeling that education has to take it all on. And I
Mm,
would say your first step is to find your community champion, somebody who's willing to listen, somebody who sees the value in collaboration and know the right things to say. You're not asking them to find money to filter to the school. You're not asking them to hire the students. You're asking for collaboration. You're asking for them to come in and have a conversation, to brainstorm, to troubleshoot with students. What's to stop a group of students from not even understanding there's funding limitations? So here's what would make our community great, but we have to prioritize based off of costs. What are the costs to do these different projects? How do we look at this
yeah,
over multiple years? So I think the first step is collaboration, bringing both parties to the table, but including students as part of the solution, not trying to take it all on as an educator. The second piece is the schedule. We want to make sure that this
mm,
isn't something we automatically push to outside of the school or the college day, because that is going to create an intentional barrier for students to participate. So looking for a class that you have that this could work at or work within, and maybe even it's how is the schedule set up so that it allows for enough time for this to happen. Changing a schedule is not something you do in a day, a week, or even sometimes a year, but you have to start the conversation at some point in time and know what you're asking for. Um, the other one I would say too, and one that we've talked quite a bit, is funding. And
yeah,
sometimes it's just bringing awareness to the funding opportunities out there. I know that when I came to Wisconsin in August, I had shared with the group collectively, here's all these different funding opportunities that are directly aligned to doing projects in the community or doing some sort of entrepreneurial type of venture. Why not start the conversation there? I want to work with you, and here's these funding opportunities. Could we do this together? Because then it would make it easier and more possible. And I would say that rather than trying to figure out all the things, just do a Google search for economic development.
right,
Figure out what your state agency is,
right.
And if you get stuck on a page, try and find one that has to do with small businesses or rural. Find a name and call somebody, and they are the nicest people, and they will direct you to where you need to go.
Right, right. We found that out. You and I
We
did.
did. We did.
And interesting, not the tangent here, but I just was earlier on a Zoom with somebody in the school that was I was connected by, workforce development with them,
Hmm.
to them. And boy, we were very like-minded. We talked a ton about the opportunities and what can happen. But yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of friendly people out there that want to do this work. They want to do what's right for kids,
Hmm.
for students, because they have an investment in it. I mean, it's part of, what they need to be doing, what we need to be doing together, and that's why that concept of the ecosystem is so important. Talk a little bit about with some of those circumstances, and I know we can go into great depth around this, but the benefits to students. What do what have you seen? What do you see when we see an ecosystem really get off the ground? When we start to see that collaboration come together where kids are tasked with real world type opportunities. What
Hmm.
are you seeing as the benefits for them?
I think it's value. They see value in themselves
Mhm.
because they are being valued. What they share is something that is considered or it's actually implemented. And that's something that they can come back to with pride and say, I was a part of that. And I was a part of the solution. I was a part of helping out and to achieve this piece of it. It's another great way for them to apply their learning. How much is done in absolute isolation, which then limits this understanding of what it actually means. So if we stop worrying about how many tests we have to get in and standards, but we're focused more on the skills, the experience, that stuff resonates more with students, and that's something that they'll carry forward. Along with that is a lot of those transferable skills that are identifiable in our leaders. So it opens up opportunities for students to be leaders. And I always come back to Scott, like whenever we talk about why we do what we do for students, is students can't be what they cannot see. We have to show them what's possible. Otherwise, they're going to go find it somewhere else, or they're going to go seek it out. If your
Yeah,
community doesn't want to continue to drain talent, then you have to show them what's possible. I can't even tell you the number of times where I've heard from leaders who have said, students have no idea. They have no idea what even exists in this business. You're right. How would they? How would they even know?
yeah,
It's not something that it's just innate because you look at the outside of a building or you see it on a map. Like you have to be able to see to realize it. And then I also think about if you don't want to lose talent, we have to show them and make those direct connections. So
yeah,
my best example to you, because again, it was just too often, too frequently said, is can we really expect a student working a part-time job at the gas station to go, you know what? I'm gonna take over that insurance agency downtown
right.
when that person wants to retire because that's a great opportunity. No, they're
Yeah,
not. They're
no,
if we're not showing them what's possible when they graduate, they're going to say the only thing for me in this community is a part-time job at the gas station. If I want anything else, I have to leave. And that has to stop because that's how our communities continue to bleed talent. And that's why we have to
yeah,
strategically get our systems, not just in one thing, in all the things. And this is where I'm going with this, Scott, is we have to stop thinking about students in the capacity of they're just future workers and we need to assign them
yeah,
careers. We need to think of them as in the lens of economic development, that they add real value to the community, not in just their careers, but in the volunteering that they do, in the projects that they do, in the capacity that they have been seen as an investment as the future leaders for the community. And that doesn't come with just assigning them jobs.
yeah. Very, very well said. It leads me to wonder where your thought is around this, and that is, and you've seen this in the work that I've been doing, and that is that career connectedness into the classroom level.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you mentioned the ability for us as a system to be better at offering opportunities, but what do you think we should be doing in that classroom level so students become more aware of themselves, the connectedness to careers?
Mhm.
What do you think of that? Where are we at with that?
We have to really look at what are we offering to students and what are they accessing? And that comes back to looking at the data.
Mhm.
So if students are having access to speakers, what types of careers and where? And who's getting to access them and who's not? And even if you look at Portrait of a Graduate, because I know we've talked about that work, if you start pulling out, if this is our goal and we start pulling out students, do we have students who potentially move through the entire system and never once connect with a career? Do we have students who move through the system
Yeah.
and they are seeing the same business 3 times and nothing else? Or are we having students who are seeing 50 different careers in their entire
Yeah.
academic career span? And I think that's the conversation that we really need to be having. Classroom speakers are great, but we don't just have it as a day off. Like we need to
Right.
structure it so
Yeah.
it's actually meaningful. And this is where when and I have a video on how to design these. You take the time before the speaker comes in to actually develop out a great experience. Otherwise, when it opens up for questions, it's going to be, how much do you make? What kind of car do you drive? What do you like to do in your free time? Versus if we
Right.
can have some sort of planning done ahead of time, then those conversations can be much more rich and much more depth
Oh,
about the career to
totally.
truly provide the awareness that students need. Now, at the same time, we can't just have guest speakers because just listening isn't the best way to learn. It's a
Right.
way to learn, but we want to have those opportunities for short-term hands-on pieces, time for students to practice those skills, and then time for students to actually see it and maybe doing it in the actual workplace. But diverse opportunities throughout their academic career, on ramps and off ramps,
Yeah.
because what I enjoyed as a 13-year-old wasn't the same at 15 or even at 20. But if we only give students one option, no options, we're limiting that future potential. So the more, the better. And I know that there's lots of different numbers out there, but I think that our goal should be first is really taking a hard look at the data and really dissecting where is this happening. And the best way to do that is to embed it as part of a course, because then when you start pulling up course level data for a particular student, when that counselor maybe gets the chance to meet with them, it will showcase what they have had access to.
Oh yeah, that's some really, really good advice and great stuff. The um, One of the things that's taken off kind of in my world around this is to, with the guest speaker part of it, is to get the business partner more engaged. Let them come in with
Yep.
a design sprint. Let them come in with a
Mhm.
profession-based approach project.
Right.
Gives them value because
Right.
a lot of that we've seen in our space at times where there can be a little frustration out of guest speakers coming in, the because of you know, just showcasing what you do in those questions that just don't really hit home. Let's talk a little bit more about work-based learning. And in our work together, we've had some great conversations around this. And I think we both agree that there are circumstances where work-based learning can be manipulated, right? I mean,
Yes.
we could talk a long time and go really deep into this and become kind of frustrated because,
Mhm.
that happens, whether it's chasing numbers, whether it's chasing, right, getting, we're doing it. But talk a little bit about how it gets manipulated, the results of that, and how it can be really negative.
hmm I would say the root cause of the bad parts manipulated and all that is a compliance focus.
Yeah.
And I wish I didn't have these conversations, but I do. It's like when the conversation revolves around counting for the state, it's a compliance
Yeah.
mindset, which means it's not student focused. It's not student centered. It's not what's best for kids. Um, and I think too, like if it's not something I would want for my child, why would I force that on another child? I
Yeah.
mean, it's there. I think when you approach it, we really have to look at again, the diverse opportunities. Not every student's in the same place, especially when we're talking about um, high school students. So being able to have the diverse opportunities and entry points versus this is the only one you get.
Yeah.
So if this doesn't work for you, I guess you get nothing. That's not okay. Sending kids out to go work their part-time jobs and to count it for the state. Oh, so are those part-time jobs ones that offer economic mobility so that the student could one day move out of their childhood home and independently be able to pay the bills? Or is it just good for now? So, how are we meeting students where they're at? What do they need? And how are we providing opportunities that will help them advance beyond what they could potentially have access to on their own? Because there's just so many limitations. And we know this with the research and the data is a lot of these students who are from low socioeconomic households, they
Yeah.
have limited career connections that aren't attached to other low socioeconomic careers. So, how are we as a system connecting students with brighter, better opportunities to really help these students advance? And again, going back to the community is if we want those careers in our community, if we want these advanced careers,
Right.
then we have to show students and connect them how to get there. But again, it's creating opportunities that are meaningful for students. And that's where I had used the Brookings research to really break down a very simple way to approach every single work-based learning experience so it really does benefit students.
Yeah, you've talked about that in regards to it needs to be intentional. In our
Mhm,
conversations, we talk about it being authentic, right? I totally agree with
mhm.
that. What needs to happen, who needs to be involved for that to become, intentional? What are some ideas behind that? So a district can go, yeah, we're doing that, or we need to shift and do more of it.
I would say take a look at every single experience. Every single experience needs to be designed collaboratively, meaning education and businesses at the table. Education has the mindset and understanding of learning and what needs to happen in order for the student to be successful. And then our industry people live it and breathe it every day. So they know how to best represent the particular career path. There's needs to be learning ahead of time that before learning is basically leveling the field. What do students need to know in order to be successful? Providing that structured learning ahead of time, clear expectations during the experience, and we're all present. We're not just absent. We're holding students accountable. We're ensuring that our businesses feel supported. And then afterwards, we're incorporating a reflection piece, which goes back to this career planning mindset of what does this mean for me? Did I like it? Did I not like it? It doesn't have to be complex. It
Right.
can be if that is an instructor choice and it depends on the type of experience, but it can be a simple like little reflection quiz
Hmm.
exit slip like
Hmm.
would I go into this career? Why or why not? Um, every experience needs to connect them to a professional. I know that when it comes to school-based enterprises, sometimes these have been 100% owned and maintained within the school. We should be having a mentorship with
Right.
somebody in the field. It doesn't have to be a direct connection because there's lots of different benefits on different types of entrepreneurs. They don't have to be the same piece of it, but using that mentor to help students understand operationally. But not just school-based enterprises, every single work-based learning experience, career-connected experience needs to improve student social capital. So those
Yeah.
professional networks. So we're providing that opportunity for every student to connect. Doesn't mean everyone will, but we still want that opportunity. And then finally, every single experience needs to work on a particular skill,
Yeah.
either a transferable skill, a technical skill or both, but at least one skill. And that doesn't mean that because this experience here works on communication, then this experience can't. We know that students need lots of practice with communication and different types of communication. So, but we want to make sure again we're being, you said authentic, I say intentional. It's the same thing is we're really trying to bring this around. So we're creating a learning experience, which is the
Right.
whole goal behind it. We're not just working. Working is working. Work-based learning requires the learning component, and this is how we structure it like learning. Not any different than what we're talking about in designing a lesson or a unit.
Yeah. Well said. Let me ask you this, and I was chewing on this the other day and wanted to text you and ask you about it. But um, we look at pain points a lot of the times, and here's a couple of them, right? One is um, students disengaged in the school system, in the classroom,
Mhm.
intentionally disengaged. And then the other big one is they're not graduating with those durable skills that we need, right? So when you talk social capital,
Mhm.
economic capital building, economic mobility. How can those couple things be impacted? Student attendance, lack of engagement, and having the correct skills. How can
Mhm.
those things be impacted for students through the social relational capital building,
Mhm.
through work-based learning?
Right.
Yeah,
So when you design a work-based learning experience or career-connected experience, we're really ensuring that it's a rich experience that both parties show up because
yeah,
some of the complaints about students at different experiences, when I've heard them, when I ask a little bit more, it's because they weren't provided any sort of preparation ahead of time. So the
yeah,
assumption that a student just already automatically knows was, and then it doesn't transpire well, and then it kind of burns the bridge. But when it comes to social capital, the biggest thing is that extends what our impact is well beyond the graduation stage. So this is somebody who they can reach out to when life throws a curveball to say, well, wow, now what do I do? My plan was this, and now it's over here. How do I navigate this? And that relationship that they have with that professional, they can actually provide very sound advice because there's so many different paths in every different career path. And as educators, there's no way for us to keep up with that. And why? Let's take that off our to-do list. If we have a strategic partnership and we're really building out these experiences, we're equipping our students to make those connections and to be able to reach out
right.
because it's not the first time they're talking to somebody. It's somebody that they know and it's somebody that they can reach out to because they've built that relationship. When it comes to student engagement, student attendance, and all that, one of my frustrating things is when work-based learning is weaponized as a way to punish students for this behavior. So
Mm,
we're going to automatically remove you from all of this because of this.
mm,
But I think we have to dig into why. Why are students absent? Why are students disengaged? Are they not interested in these certain subjects that they have to pass? And as a punishment, now they have to take double of
right.
those and they can't take the courses that they want? Is it because some of this work or what they're doing in the
Mm,
day has no real relevance because it's still this archaic model of learning? Is it because the student doesn't believe that there's any value in earning that degree anymore?
yeah,
And unfortunately, as an educator, I've encountered some of it where it's like, but why should I try? I already know my fate, and it doesn't matter if I do well in this class. It doesn't matter if I pass. It doesn't even, frankly, matter if I graduate because what I have is the best I can get. And there is nobody who's connected to
yeah,
me to anything else. So I think when we start digging into the why, we start to uncover what needs to happen. And when you start looking at these different schools and classrooms that are providing these engaging instructional pieces, the hands-on learning, the experiences, the work-based learning pieces, those students are really engaged and involved and they care. If that's what it takes,
yeah,
why isn't there more of that then?
right,
Because
right.
that's just an instructional shift. That's not high money. That is how we do business and educating students.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you say that. The Let's go this direction though a little bit with it too. And I've heard you talk about districts checking boxes with work-based learning.
Yeah.
What what do you think are the gaps that start to get created for students, even the system itself, when systematically we're doing work-based learning, but they're just checking boxes?
You mean in the types of experiences, or are you talking about something
Well,
else?
I mean, like, where do we see the gaps? What starts to happen, for students? I mean, you've just talked about it a little bit, but
Yeah.
when we don't have that authentic, intentional work-based learning approach, which a lot of our schools, right? We had this
Mhm.
conversation. A lot of schools are checking boxes and saying they're doing it. And what does that do to the system? What are the gaps that start to create when you just check boxes?
Um, well, I can take a few here examples. So let's say that we've set up apprenticeship programs, which are time intensive, but students don't go into it because they're actually interested in it. They're going into it because they want to skip out on part of the day or they don't really see value in any of the other courses and they just want to make money. And then as soon as they graduate, they leave. They drop out of the program because they're planning to go to college this whole time. It sends a very strange message to our business partners about who are we actually sending, and are these students actually invested in that? Because
Right.
that's what we should be doing, is we should be ensuring that it's a good match for the student, not just well, we need to fill the spot and you seem willing, so do it. No. I think some of the other things is when, again, kind of going back to the data, who's accessing and who's not. I had a very strong relationship as an educator with a lot of different teachers who served a lot of our underrepresented populations, so special education, English language learners. And so we were trying to make sure that those students had access. And part of that access is thinking about, okay, if they're wanting to go beyond what's walkable in Iowa in the winter, right?
Mhm.
Then we need to be making sure that they have a driver's license. So then if I take that, that was a need that's not directly related to it, but how are we having those conversations earlier so that students can plan ahead? So that was part of it too, is if we know that we want these students and they really want to take part in an internship before they graduate, how do we make sure that their schedule offers that opportunity, which means we need to have the conversation earlier. We need to make sure that we're lining up the schedules so that we're providing those interventions so that they can be more successful. And then some of the work that I've even done since at the Department of Ed and then even afterwards with special education is taking a look at what are those common barriers to accessing. Because when we start looking at those barriers, students with disabilities and these range from not really applicable to potentially going to make us struggle on the job site without some extra supports there. But how many schools are saying, well, if you have this disability or IEP, and I shouldn't say not disability like a category, but because you need these extra supports, you're going to go down this other path, which this other path is going to be customer service jobs. That's what you get.
Mhm.
Versus if we provided some interventions and supports earlier, you could access something in a career path of interest. Now, let's say we have a student who wasn't able to access an internship and ended up doing a job instead. They're already behind their peers. So then when they go to college, it's going to be harder for them to make up that gap versus their peers who had a job, then had an internship, and now they're at college having more advanced internships. So how do we again look at, it's not about numbers, what makes it easiest? How do we ensure it's what's best for kids and that we provide as many opportunities that are high level as possible? And I guess as a side note, this is why I was always a fan of internships, because they are something that can be shifted to meet the needs of the actual student. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you need extra support. It doesn't matter if you struggle in a particular area. Everybody can do it. Everybody can have access to a career path of interest in an internship. It's just how can I support you better and meet you where you're at and position the internship to recognize how do we challenge you in an appropriate way so that you can become the best you that you can and not get frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff too. I totally agree. Um, when we hear when we hear those constraints, it's putting the system first rather than the students.
Yeah.
And that's just that shouldn't be. But I know we could spend a lot of time on this
Mhm.
too, but I want you to touch a little bit on it with I've heard you talk regarding some of the census data and information regarding rural and regarding just larger cities and our youth attracting to those versus your pipeline and supporting your own home community, which is part of that ecosystem. Give
Mhm.
a little information just regarding that concept behind it as the a strong reason to have, strong work-based learning opportunities for your students and partnering within your own community.
Right. Um, if we don't do something, it's only going to get worse.
Hmm.
And when we think about a student when they graduate, what's the message that we've sent to them? Have we sent them the message like, there's a spot for you here? We really want you here. If you're going away to college, we really want you to come back. And it's not just, you know, words, it's actually actions. It's been these partnerships all along, these different opportunities. If we are in a community where we've continued to see a decline in businesses, how do we partner with the school to help with startups potentially in those gaps, or having students help solve some of those problems? Because as I mentioned earlier, once the decline starts, it's hard for it to stop and to turn around. But if
Yeah.
you do nothing, it's going to be a lot more expensive to turn it around than if you start now to make that shift. But if you want to retain talent, if you want to attract talent back, you cannot ignore the residents that you have. And I'm talking about the non-adults. And when we talk about 18 and under, they are there because that is where they are told to be. They don't have a choice in the matter. And when they have a choice, have you created a reason for them to want to stay, to want to return?
Yeah.
Or are you sending the message, you don't have a place here? We don't really care about you. We only care about adults. We only care about our current adults.
Right.
And when we look at the different cities that are growing, there's clearly cities that are growing and where young people are moving to. Those young people can choose to stick around in those communities if they grow to really love it and want to raise a family there, or they may want to come back. But what's going to draw them back? And it's not just growing up there. It has to be something more. And that's where it is just so important that we develop these ecosystems and alignment. And again, I'm not talking, Scott, about anybody going out and buying some big expensive program. It is literally looking at all these initiatives that
Right.
you have or these different things that you're doing and just doing it with a planned intentionality by collaborating and building up that partnership.
Yeah. Makes total sense, right? Wish it landed that easy for most of us in education, but unfortunately it doesn't. Which leads
Yeah.
me into the kind of the end here, and I want to talk a little bit about you and I have talked about, potentially partnering together and doing some things in our state.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited about that. Where it goes, neither one of us kind of knows yet, but we talked a little bit about how can we do some research, find some, regarding money, right?
Yeah.
People's eyes will perk, ears and eyes will perk up when they hear that.
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts? How can we work a little bit better together, you and I? How can we start to offer some things to our school districts within for sure in our region at CESA too, but you know what, throughout the state, because I think it's worthy to do that, where we can find some money, but attach it to some great work that we could do together collectively in
Mhm.
relationship to work-based learning, creating that ecosystem, creating career-connected learning within the classrooms. What have you thought so far? Where are we at? What are we going to do?
Well, Scott, I think we're just going to do it. Like we're
That's
going to do
right.
it all. Like when we looked through all those different opportunities, I think we were just like, oh my goodness. I mean, I feel like
Right.
there is so much opportunity in Wisconsin. And I again, I hope you share that list I had created for that pre-conference, which I know was somewhat confined to that group, but there's so many different opportunities out there for funding for communities, but you have to partner. And it's like some of it is
Yeah.
as simple as paint. Paint can go a long way, like it's not
Yeah.
something you're having to come
Yeah.
up with. And especially if this is stuff that is already on, like you already have CTSOs. Why aren't we just being more strategic with them? We already have hopefully an entrepreneurship class. And if you don't, you better get one because that's
Right.
your future of your community, and your leadership opportunity too for students. But I think when it comes to a partnership, and one of the things I love about being able to work with you too is like my work that I've done outside of education and the collaboration pieces
Yeah.
and understanding how to translate. So that's what this means over here. What does it mean for an education? And then taking a looking at your programming and where's the easiest place to make that shift. That's going to be maybe a little bit of professional development to make that slight twist here, but it's this intentional collaboration that only grows from there. So I would say that's what I see is translator role, professional development, being able to make those connections so that you can start to see that vitality in your communities and those partnerships grow because it is a mutual beneficial thing between education and your communities.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. I could see us, the thing I really like about working with you also is that you're the type to roll up your sleeves to do the work.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I found in the last, it's been about 3 to 4 or 5 years of the school districts I've been working with, and I think this sets us apart at CESA too, is that's how we do it.
Hmm.
You get all of it rather than a 4 hour PD. And when I met you and we were able to start to work together, and people need to know this, when we took the time to say yes, basically I said yes and then reached out to you and Peter. But when we said yes to DPI, when they asked, will you create and design that pre-conference right
Hmm.
before our state career summit, you didn't hesitate. You said yeah, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she said yes. And what I learned over about a month, a little bit more of working together with you, it was about the true work, being able
Hmm.
to give those that were going to be there in the audience the opportunity to get really you, not a keynote speaker,
Right.
right? Not a breakout room session. And actually, you, me, and Peter walked away frustrated a little bit, like, we need to come back the next day and the next day and the next day because these people need this hands-on approach, which again I think has set us apart. I think in yourself and how you consult, it sets us apart from the traditional approach of professional development,
Hmm.
which has to switch, it has to change. So, I'm excited to be able to, I think if we can pull together even just some webinars to showcase or show or bring resources to some people that might want to listen, and then from there go, hey, how can we collaborate, network together, and see this actually take place and take off within their communities.
Yeah.
That's another language switch to talk about. It's not in the school district, it is in their community. It's the
Hmm.
ecosystem approach that I'm really excited about. So we
Yeah.
definitely, for those that are listening, we're definitely going to be doing something. We're not quite
Yes.
sure exactly, but
Yeah.
as we roll forward, we will, on my newsletter and some more of these podcasts that I'm going to be doing, we'll definitely have more information around it. So I'm super excited about that. Give me one quick minute here. Anything else with your consulting in the work that you're doing that you have out in front of you that you'd like to highlight or tell people about? Anything new?
Uh,
Anything, I know you got a book coming.
I feel like that's what I'm living and breathing right now is my
Yeah.
book. Right. So just doing more of the collaboration with the community, streamlining how we utilize the different resources, getting everybody on the same page. Because of funding limitations for a lot, is how do we use what we have, which was
Yeah.
already part of my mantra. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing to know about me is this is authentically me. Like this is
Yeah.
who I am. I feel like it truly is my purpose, my mission to help how we educate students and how we streamline how we do things, because it's not only what's best for kids, but it also really supports our educators who need that right now. So,
Yeah.
as you said, I love to roll up my sleeves. I'm a problem solver. I love the challenge of taking something that's messy or confusing or frustrating and making it clean and simple and easy to address, while being able to see that progress along the way.
Yeah, that's super great. I got one final question I always ask our guests. In our tagline, it's the future is clear. Teach like it's 2045. What do you see education looking like in 2045?
I hope education in 2045 um, has more of this idea of blurred lines of where education
Mhm.
happens, how students learn, what they learn, and what the purpose behind how we teach and what they learn, because it does need to shift. And by 2045, it needs to be very different than it is today and how it was 5 years ago, 20 years ago. So, I would say more of that community, the collaboration, this cohort sort of contributors from a lot of different fields to really provide the depth and the support that students in education need.
Yeah, well said. If before we head out, people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
I think the easiest way is to go to my website. You can do a direct link there, voleskyconsulting.com.
Sounds great. Well, Kristy, I really appreciate you joining me today. Yep. It's been just a privilege to work with you and get to know you better. So appreciate it. So as we depart, remember the future is clear. Take care, everybody.